Hi, I'm Thomas, the Accidental DM, your source for variety in tabletop RPGs, and today we have a bit of a bundle here of different things. Mainly this is about then kind of solo RPGs. Now, this isn't going to be, I'm going to show you all of these different things like I do with some of my introduction or my first look videos. This is just going to be a general discussion about solo RPGs in general and kind of how to kind of play them, some of the materials that's available for you. And of course, this is not an exhaustive list. There's other things out there that you might be more familiar with, but these are the ones that I happen to have and kind of, for the most part, have kind of looked through and kind of play with them a little bit on my own. So let's just kind of jump in and see what we have here. Over here on my right, we'll just kind of start over here, is the Iron Sword tabletop RPG of Perilous Quest. This is kind of, I think, kind of one of the newer ones on the scene, kind of the one that's excited a lot of people in terms of kind of gameplay and things like that. It is its own separate system, but it also then has the ability to kind of generate content through kind of prompts as well. And I think that's one of the reasons why it's kind of very, very popular right now, because it can do a lot of different things. In terms of game systems as a whole, we, of course, then have the Micro Chatbook RPG series, which is put out then by Noah Patterson. And he has then as well kind of flavored it into a couple of different genres as well. It's basically the same game, but just kind of some tweaks and happenings, so you can kind of play in a sci-fi world or in kind of a post-apocalyptic world, as well as the many, many adventures that are kind of put out for those as well. In terms then of game systems too, probably the one that a lot of people are familiar with is Four Against Darkness, a solitary dungeon delve pen and paper game. And I also have a couple of the kind of modules that kind of go along with it, just to kind of give some different kind of flavors as you're going through. And again, it's about kind of randomly generating, just as with the Micro Chatbook RPGs, kind of randomly generating then different rooms, as well as then kind of different monsters that are part of those rooms as well. Then we have this one I'm not as familiar with. I did recently pick this one up, but it's not one that I have kind of read through and kind of played through yet. It's one I picked up because it is for Cthulhu's, and I'm kind of a big fan of that kind of cosmic horror kind of genre. And so at least from my kind of skimming through it, and I haven't read through it all the way, this seems to kind of be not a game system in and of itself like Micro Chatbooks or Four Against Darkness or Ironforged, but as kind of a AI emulator, a GM emulator, which then is kind of, I think, kind of helps out then kind of understanding then one of the other big ones in terms of game emulators, which would be probably one that's familiar with most people when you're into solo RPG, and you've probably come across this one as well, the Mythic Game Master Emulator, kind of being able to kind of roll on a fate chart with kind of different variety of categories to kind of help you kind of figure out, well, which way we're going to go, and then being able to kind of create then prompts for doing other things and kind of how to kind of set that up. And so that's kind of another bit of category. But if you're going to be going in terms of an artificial game master type of thing, one of the things that you're probably really going to be needing in some form or fashion is some form of random tables. Those are going to be your friend if you're playing this style of RPG. These ones that I have here, I've shown them before. This is kind of a collection that is put together by Matt Davids, and in there are a variety of different genres for different things. Cyberpunk, there's a couple of those. There's a science fiction one. I think there's a second one of those. This is kind of for your pulp or for your Cthulhu type of things, post-apocalyptic, modern, etc. Even one for Wild West. But probably one that I think has the most love and attention to it is probably his fantasy series. I think there's like 4 or 5, maybe even 6 different books of random tables having to do with fantasy. But these are kind of the bread and butter then, if that's kind of the direction that you're going to be going in terms of kind of gameplay with a kind of an AI version of it as well. I did have one other that I wanted to show, and I was going to mention it a little bit earlier when we were talking about systems. But I kind of jumped off into the game emulator as well. This is kind of the Call of Cthulhu. They do have kind of this Alone Against the series, Alone Against the Frost, Alone Against the Dark, and with the starter set, there's also Alone Against the Flames. And this is a little bit different. I mean, you're using it's kind of a GM emulator in a sense of you're using the game system of Call of Cthulhu as well, and then this is kind of leading you and kind of working you through it. This is a little bit more akin, though, to kind of the old school style of books that you might remember from your youth. I don't even know if they're still kind of being put out today, but kind of the choose your own adventure path of things. And I think the Alone Against the series kind of very much kind of fits within that genre as well. So that's just kind of another example of some of the ways that you can kind of go with this as well. So we have different types of systems. You kind of have a choose your own adventure. You have your kind of complete standalone type of things. You have your game emulators. And I should say Ironsworn is also, even though it does have its own setting, it does kind of have an emulator, GM emulator kind of element to it as well. And I think that very much kind of fits in with their more recent project that Sean Tompkins has been working on with the new Starforged, which just takes the rule set for Ironsworn and kind of being able to kind of move it over into science fiction. I think that can kind of be moved over. And as well, I believe he has a stretch goal of his Kickstarter campaign to kind of even moving that over to kind of a Spanish Main type of setting as well. I'm not sure if that Kickstarter goal has met yet or not, but that's I think kind of showing the versatility. But it's still based upon ultimately the game mechanics then in Ironsworn. But because of the randomness of asking the Oracle in Ironsworn or in Starforged, it kind of leads then to also being able, I think, I haven't done it, and I'm sure there's probably people that have, though, being able to kind of import that into whatever system you want to kind of play with, very much in the spirit then of maybe the Mythic Game Master emulator. But anyway, this is just then my little collection, just to kind of give you an idea of some possibilities if you're interested in playing solo RPGs, or if you're a fan of solo RPGs and you've got some other things that you see, any examples or materials that you think would be helpful to other people playing solo RPGs, please put them down in the comments down below, because I think this is kind of a shared experience as we're kind of all learning about these things together, kind of sharing ideas and stories, and all of that kind of all helps us then grow into this hobby that we love of TTRPG in solo play. So anyway, this has been then my look then at a little small look, primer, I guess you could say, of solo RPGs. If you liked what you saw, please consider subscribing to the channel for more of the content that I put out, as well as then sharing this video with others. And hopefully then we can kind of continue to kind of grow all together. But until next time, thanks for watching.